Detailed information on tuberculosis. 1. What is TB, tuberculosis? A contagious illness called tuberculosis can infect your lungs or other tissues. The organs most frequently affected by it are the lungs, but it can also harm your spine, brain, or kidneys. The Latin root of the word tuberculosis means nodule or something that sticks out. A second name for tuberculosis is TB. Through airborne transmission, the bacteria spread from person to person. When someone with TB disease in their throat or lungs coughs, sneezes, talks, or sings, they release bacteria into the air. You can contract TB if you breathe in contaminated air. By touching, kissing, or sharing food or dishes, TB cannot be transmitted. Compared to people you only see occasionally, you are more likely to contract TB from people you live or work with. The TB germs are active if you have TB disease, which means they are growing, multiplying, inside of your body and making you ill. You can spread the TB germs to other people if the disease is developing in your lungs or throat. After being infected with TB germs for weeks to years, you can develop TB disease. Not everyone who contracts TB becomes ill, but if you do, you need to get treated. Although it may appear that TB has disappeared, it is actually dormant, sleeping, inside your body. If you have active tuberculosis or tuberculosis disease, you are infected, experience symptoms, and are spreadable, TB disease. There are 3 stages of TB, tuberculosis. 2 stages of TB, tuberculosis. Primary or initial tuberculosis infection. A person contracts tuberculosis when they breathe in airborne bacteria. If a person is in close proximity to one or more infected individuals who have active TB and are coughing or sneezing, this is more likely to occur. Many people's immune systems quickly eliminate any bacteria they may have inhaled. In other cases, the TB bacteria enter a dormant state while being surrounded by macrophages, a type of white blood cell. This stage, known as latent infection, can last for many years or even the rest of one's life. However, in some groups, such as young children, the elderly, and people who have recently contracted TB infection, and those with weakened immune systems, symptoms of active tuberculosis may appear weeks after the initial infection. Latent TB infection. A tuberculin skin test or blood test for TB, known as the interferon gamma release assay, or IGRA, will be positive even though a person with latent TB has no symptoms and is not contagious. This indicates that the person has not only been exposed to tuberculosis but also has a latent, or occult, infection with the bacteria that causes tuberculosis. In Texas Austin Regional Clinic, internal medicine specialist Hyan Yacoub, MD, says, "You have a ticking bomb waiting for your immune system to weaken." According to him, latent TB can make it more difficult to treat potential health problems that may develop later in life. Latent TB must be found and treated as a result. In order to stop the development of an active illness and the further spread of tuberculosis, treatment is advised in some high-risk individuals if a latent infection is found. People who are at a high risk of contracting TB, like those who work in hospitals, may undergo screenings for latent infection, sometimes once a year. Active tuberculosis infection. In cases of active tuberculosis, the bacteria grow in the body and produce observable symptoms. Additionally, this is the time when the illness can spread. 3. What symptoms and signs are associated with tuberculosis? Inactive TB patients don't show any symptoms. They might, however, test positive for a skin reaction or blood test. Any one of the following symptoms can be present in people with active TB. Poor cough, lasting longer than 2 weeks. Your chest hurts. Coughing up sputum or blood, mucus. Weakness or drowsiness. Decrease in appetite. Loss of weight by disease of TB. Fever disease by TB. Sweats at night disease. 4. Exist different types of tuberculosis? You may also hear about different forms of TB, such as the most prevalent, pulmonary, lung, tuberculosis, in addition to active or inactive TB. But in addition to your lungs, the bacterium can also harm other parts of your body, leading to extrapulmonary tuberculosis, or TB outside of the lung. Additionally, systemic miliary tuberculosis, which can affect the entire body and result in A. Meningitis is brain inflammation. B. High levels of white blood cells in your urine are referred to as sterile pyuria. C. Spinal tuberculosis, also known as Pott's disease or tuberculosis spondylitis. D. An adrenal gland disorder called Addison's disease. E. The liver infection hepatitis. F. Neck lymphadenitis, also known as scrofula or TB lymphadenitis. 5. Why does tuberculosis occur? The bacterium Mycobacterium tuberculosis is responsible for TB. The bacteria are airborne and typically affect the lungs, though they can also affect other body parts. TB is contagious, but it doesn't spread quickly. In order to contract it, you typically need to be in close proximity to a contagious person for an extended period of time. 6. How does the disease spread? When a person with active TB disease coughs, sneezes, talks, sings, or even laughs, they can release bacteria into the air and spread the disease. Only those with a pulmonary infection that is active are contagious. Most people who inhale TB bacteria are able to combat it and prevent it from spreading. These people develop a latent TB infection because the bacterium inactivates. Up to 13 million Americans may have latent TB. Even though the bacteria are dormant, they are still present in the body and can later become active. Some individuals can live a life with a latent TB infection that never becomes active and progresses to TB disease. However, TB can become active if your immune system deteriorates and is unable to prevent the growth of the bacteria. To prevent this from happening, numerous researchers are developing treatments.